Sure.
You know, the things like that that make a lot of sense.
Having my baby.
And that's where you get the accurate horoscopes as well. They're right on the money.
Yep. All right. Meanwhile, all eyes on the U.S. Senate as Republicans take one step closer to repealing and replacing Obamacare. Senate Republicans hope.
President Trump is optimistic about the overhaul, despite both parties insisting that the vote needs to be delayed.
And the president not standing on the sideline. He's picking up the phone. Peter Ducey live outside the White House with details on the health care showdown just between Republicans, Peter.
Right, and apparently President Trump has been working the phones so hard to try to get Republicans on board with this health care bill that the Senate Majority Whip John Cornyn says they're trying to hold him back a little bit. But Cornyn also says that President Trump is very important in this process to get it across the finish line. And President Trump now says he basically thinks he's got a little bit of a head start in flipping a few of the 5 Republicans on record as opposed to this GOP health care draft because he's been building relationships with them since January.
Well, they're friends of mine. And I don't think they're that far off. I don't think they're that far off. You know, famous last words, right? But I think we're going to get there. Can't promise. I think we're going to get there.
We learned this weekend the president isn't just dialing senators who are already opposed to the Senate health care draft. He's calling to make sure Republicans who haven't said much about the measure are comfortable as well, like Alabama Senator Luther Strange, who got one of those calls.
It was a great conversation. He's encouraged me by his personal participation in dealing with not only me, but all of my colleagues to try and find out how to address their problems. There are legitimate issues here, but this is the legislative process. Everybody has a position. It's encouraging to have a president who's willing to work with us.
So with calls like that one and then a tweet over the weekend about health care where President Trump referred to very fine Republican senators, we're seeing that the approach he is taking a few days ahead of a Wednesday procedural vote for this is a friendly one. Now we wait to see if that approach changes in the middle of the week if the numbers aren't there. Back to you.
All right. Hey, Peter, before you go, is that pro-Trump super PAC still spending $1 million to remind that U.S. Senator Heller that he should change his mind?
It looks like that is something that they're doing to try to send a message to Heller and then any other senators who might be thinking of coming out against their party's leadership, that there is outside money that is going to go against senators that go against the president.
Right.
Well, you know, people went to the polls, Peter. They went to the polls to vote for this. People wanted repeal and replace, and it's up to the Senate, it's up to the House leaders to get this done. Many people are saying, you know what? Push this through. Let's make it work. Whatever you disagree on, let's come to the table, let's discuss it, and let's figure out how we can pass it.
All right.
We'll
Peter,
see.
Thank you very much for the live report.
I think Senator Cornyn made the most sense. Senator Cornyn's like, it's not perfect, it's not exactly what I want, but it's on the way to doing what we can get done with 52 votes maximum, and you need 50 with the vice president who's going to vote. The question is, are a lot of these senators saying, I'm not willing to vote yet, and looking to get something in the next week, because they say this is a positioning paper to get started towards amending it and negotiating with it.
And the idea is if Mitch McConnell has 50 votes on Wednesday, and right now they say maybe it's a 60, his team says it's probably a 60% chance of that. If they have 50 votes on Wednesday, they would start, then they would have a vote-a-rama, 20 hours worth of debate. They could have a vote before the 4th of July. But right now, they don't have the votes.
Axios, by the way, who already, as soon as your Ivanka interview was done, 1 minute later they had it up. They just said that Mitch McConnell might put the vote forward even if he doesn't think he has the votes.
Really?
He wants to just put it out there. There's a sense that he just wants to get to the next thing.
Yeah.
And he says, listen, this is the best I can do. If you guys aren't going to pass it, I'm moving on to tax reform.
We all know that people went to the polls not only to vote for health care, but they also were going to the polls and voted for President Trump because they said it's about jobs, it's about wages, it's about keeping our country safe, it's about education. And the Democrats didn't get on board with that and didn't get it right. And they continued that narrative of Russia, collusion, corruption. And some Democrats are now saying, you know what, this has got to stop. We're tired of the negative rhetoric. We're tired of you talking about Russia because they're going out into their communities. You have Congressman Tim Walz, who is running for governor of Minnesota. He said he went to 22 counties in his state, and they're all saying, enough of Russia. We want to talk about jobs and putting food on the table.
If you stay in Washington, you think that people care care about some story that can't be verified with unnamed sources about a Russian story you can't follow. Senator Chuck Schumer, majority leader, minority leader in the Senate, may have gotten the message.
Democrats need a strong, bold, sharp-edged, and common-sense economic agenda, policy, platform, message that appeal to the middle class, that resonate with the middle class, and show that and unite Democrats. This economic message platform is going to resonate. It's what we were missing, and it's not going to be baby steps. It's going to be bold. When you lose an election, you don't blame other people, you blame yourself.
Wow, that was a kick in the teeth to Hillary Clinton 2 weeks ago. I made mistakes, but that's not why I lost.
But it's a kick in the teeth to all the Democrats because they simply don't have a message. And when you look at this string of special election losses that the Democrats have put together, 4 straight, Donald Trump says he won the last 5. You got to have a message. And when you look at, and we had last week on this program, Mark Penn, who ran Hillary's campaign a couple of cycles ago, he gave us a preview of the brand new Harvard-Harris poll, which shows this. 64% of this nation, people who responded, voters say that the Russia investigation is hurting the country. Over half say it is time to move on to other issues. Meanwhile, 44% say that they should keep the focus on Russia. But 73% of those who responded said they were worried that the investigations are preventing Congress from tackling important issues. In other words, when you turn on certain channels, all you hear about is Russia, Russia, Russia. If it is true that the Democrats are going to shift the perspective over to jobs and stuff like that, if you're watching the Russia channel, you don't know that anything's getting done in Washington. And in fact, maybe nothing is getting done in Washington.
By the way, it seems like a lot of people voted. There was like 150% vote there. So Mark Penn, I don't know how we did that.
I don't think it
64% and 54% and 44%.
I think they were separate ones, and those were, yeah.
Okay, that's fantastic. But I'm just saying, I add that together and we had a problem.
Don't add them together.
Good job. All right, so I would think that if Senator Schumer is actually sincere and actually really wants to put a plan that gets the middle class and working class back to work, he has a partner in the White House because President Trump got elected from blue-collar workers, not from Los Angeles, not from actors, not from billionaires, got elected by the middle America.
But do you really
for bread and butter economics.
Right, but do you think Chuck Schumer wants to work with Donald Trump and then let Donald Trump get the credit for anything?
Do you remember Bill Clinton?
Just a yes or a no answer.
Bill Clinton said, I don't know if he ever agreed with Newt Gingrich, but when Newt Gingrich had some great ideas, he took them over, thanks to Dick Morris, and called them his own. So I'm not sure that there might be something similar going on right now because President Trump likes to get things done. However, until Chuck Schumer sees the polls that show that the only way Democrats can be successful is start working with the president, he probably won't start working with the president.
That's my point. It's not going to work right now, even though they're saying we want jobs. It's like the health care thing.
Well, the polls made him switch his tone already.
If they really wanted help with health care, they would be in there right now trying to do something about, okay, what do we do about Medicaid? What do we do about Planned Parenthood? All that stuff. But instead they're going,
well, bottom line,
they know what they want to do.
They continued to say Russia, Russia, Russia. It backfired. It's not working. They lost 4 special elections. They lost the Senate. They lost the House. They lost the presidential race. Now they're realizing America doesn't want this. And they're finally getting on board and realizing when you go to the heart of America, what really are on the minds of Americans. Why are you laughing at me?
No, it's so great. Is I knew Ainsley was ready to toss because this is what you did. You went.
I'm done.
She went back.
She
went back
talking.
Like this. She goes like this. She goes, I'm going to go bounce back and forth. I'm ready to toss. I'm ready to toss.
I feel comfortable with you guys.
You know what?
Y'all are my peeps.
I think
just like
I think the key is when the director takes camera 1 that reveals.
Right, exactly. That's when they say.
Or Ainsley goes
like
this, yeah.
You're a little feisty today, Brian. I'm feeling it on a Monday.
I just didn't see the ottoman pop out of the recliner. That's the only thing I didn't miss. That's the only thing I missed.
Yeah, what happened over the weekend, Brian?
Seriously.
Do tell.
We need to get into this later.
Yeah.
Okay. Good morning to you guys. To you at home as well. We do begin with the Fox News alert right now. 2 U.S. Marines are seriously burned in an explosion while working on a fighter jet. The blast happening on the tarmac at MCAS Miramar in San Diego. Both Marines rushed to the hospital for treatment. They belong to a reserve squadron based out of Texas, but have not yet been identified. The cause of the blast is under investigation. Is today the day? Justice Anthony Kennedy calls it quits. The speculation is growing at this hour. The 80-year-old justice will announce his retirement on the court's last day before summer recess. If he does throw in the towel, that would give President Trump a second Supreme Court pick. The High Court also expected to decide what action to take on President Trump's travel ban, and the justices could weigh in on a separation of church and state case that deals with a Missouri church playground excluded from a state grant program. This is heartbreaking. 9 people dead. Dozens are missing after a party boat packed with people suddenly sinks. The 4-story ship plunging underwater in just a matter of minutes in Colombia. This time-lapse video shows rescuers racing to the scene, pulling 100 people from the water. It's unclear what caused the boat to sink. Survivors say it appeared to be overloaded. Desperate to save their homes, terrified residents use buckets of pool water to battle a wildfire in Southern California. The intense flames you can see right there all started by a car crash north of Los Angeles. The fire torching nearly 900 acres, fed by dry brush, heat, and intense winds. No one, though, is hurt, so that is the good news of the situation, guys.
Hot and dry out there. They need some rain.
Absolutely.
That reminds me of the big skyscraper or the apartment building in London.
In London, yeah.
It was the mom that turned on her faucet, and that saved her family.
Yep, to keep everybody moist in there.
That's right. All right. Thank you, Julian.
All right.
Well, still ahead, the second part of our exclusive interview with Ivanka Trump. We wanted to know what it's like working in the swamp, and her answer coming up, and why it gives her goosebumps.
And remember the ad that had Granny going over the cliff thanks to Paul Ryan? Well, it's back. So are Democrats, right? Are Republicans out to kill Granny again? The doctor's in the house.
Hello, doctor. Remember the TV ad that had the Republicans pushing Granny over the cliff? Well, it's back. So are Republicans really trying to kill off Grandma with their health care plan? Here's the headline, straight from the New York Times. Medicaid cuts may force retirees out of nursing homes. Here to separate fact from fiction, Dr. Nicole Saphier. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
All right, we've got some questions, and you're going to put them to rest. Fact or fiction? First question. The Senate health care bill, as it stands this morning, does not propose cuts to Medicaid. Is that fact or fiction?
The black and white answer depends on who you ask.
That's right.
I'm going to say there will be cuts to Medicaid. So this is fiction. Essentially, you're not taking away real-time dollars. However, what you're going to see is the slowing of spending in the future. You're actually going to be doing the spending or the growth of Medicaid more towards the general consumer index as opposed to Medicare or healthcare inflation.
Sure. And at this point, what the Republicans are talking about is it's a state's issue. Let's have the state governors in these various states figure out what to do with the Medicaid money.
Right. So if you're having less federal funding, the states will have more responsibility. And what they're going to do with that, whether increase taxes, they're tighten their requirements for coverage, what they're going to do, we're not quite sure yet.
Okay. Next question. Skilled nursing care would not be covered by Medicare or Medicaid. Is that true or false?
That's false. At this point, federal law maintains that Medicaid does cover nursing care facilities. What happens is Medicare does not cover long-term nursing care. So patients go in as private payers until they kind of deplete their funds. We have our populations, they're living longer. Right. So what's happening is once they deplete their own funds, Medicaid kicks in the rest, and now they're in the nursing home on Medicaid dollars. For every $1 that's spent on a low-income child, you're actually spending $5 on our elderly population. So a large amount of the Medicaid money goes to the nursing homes.
Speaking of elderly, the oldest people under 65 would pay 5 times more than younger people, younger patients. Fact or fiction?
That's true. That is a fact, sort of, in the sense that they...
Fact, sort of.
Fact, sort of. I mean, that's politics these days.
Yeah.
They may pay up to 5 times more. Under the Affordable Care Act, it was capped at 3 times more. Under the Senate health care, it'd be 5 times more. It doesn't mean that they're going to. It's just that they may be. And what they're trying to do is get more healthy people into the marketplace to drive down the premiums, which long-term may actually decrease those premiums. And you may not be seeing 5 times that being charged for the older population.
And it's still a draft bill. Who knows what would be in the final. And the final question, real quickly, insurance companies required to accept all applicants regardless of pre-existing conditions.
Notorious pre-existing conditions, which may be the weakest link of the bill, to be honest, but it still remains pre-existing conditions will be covered under the Senate health care bill.
Despite what you might hear on TV.
Despite what you might hear.
It's in there.
It's
all right.
there.
Doctor, thanks for making a studio call today. All right, straight ahead on this Monday, the second part of Ainsley's exclusive sit-down interview with Ivanka Trump. She wanted to know, what's it like working in the swamp? Her answer, why it gives her the goosebumps. And first it was shampoo and laptops. Now the TSA could ban books from your carry-on bag. Details coming up. We got some quick Monday morning headlines for you right now. An off-duty police officer jumps into action when a passenger tries to open an emergency exit 30,000 feet in the sky. It's not good. Pamela Minshew tackling the woman on a Southwest Airlines flight from L.A. to Houston. You can see police escorting the woman off the plane after the pilot forced an emergency landing in Corpus Christi. The FBI is trying to figure out what happened. And these TSA changes probably would not have stopped that woman. The agency considering making airline passengers remove books from their carry-on bags. It would make it easier to inspect bags, people's stuff, to avoid checked luggage fees. But the ACLU says it raises privacy issues since agents could actually see what you are reading.
Seriously?
Yep.
Tough luck. Keep us safe. I don't care if you know what I'm reading.
Right.
All right, well, we told you earlier, we sat down with Ivanka. If you're just waking up, we were in Washington last week. We sat down with President Melania and also Ivanka. So we're running our interview with Ivanka today. She talks right now in this segment about her husband, about living in the swamp, about her faith, and
Wait,
her
she lives in the swamp?
In Washington, D.C. Watch. So, Ivanka, welcome to Washington. Your dad calls this the swamp. What is it like to live in the swamp?
Well, it's 90 plus degrees today, so it is very
Truly
swampy.
swampy
It is
weather.
particularly swampy this time of year. But, you know, it's been an unbelievable journey. I've viewed my time in D.C., in addition to obviously the incredible work that the administration's doing that I feel so blessed to be contributing to and a part of. But I've also viewed this as you know, just an amazing experience in our own family's life. So being able to come into the White House every day, you can't help but feel goosebumps when you walk into this building.
What is it like to be able to say, it's a very small club, my father is President of the United States of America?
It's really remarkable. I don't know if that ever feels like a completely normal experience. You know, every time I say that, every time I think that, I'm just in awe. I'm incredibly proud of him. I am incredibly excited for the opportunity to be here and to help him accomplish his goals on behalf of the American people in any small way that I can. But it is a remarkable thing, and when you think about it in the context over this country's history, very few people can say that about their parents.
What's it like working with Jared? You know, most people, they separate from their spouse.
Yeah.
And you hear when people retire, the other one has to go get a job. Because being together, you're not used to that. But you're with him 24/7, basically. What is that like?
Well, Jared and I were both entrepreneurs prior to this. And we got a little bit of a sample of working collectively during the course of the campaign. Because Jared was very, very involved. So I would come around the corner at Trump Tower and I would bump into my husband, which was an unbelievable surprise and always welcome. So that was the real first experience of working collectively with one another, and now this is a really exciting extension of that, except I get to see him every day, which is amazing.
As someone who his faith is so important to him, I know you converted. What made you want to do that?
It's a very personal decision, so I tend not to talk about my faith too openly. I feel it's one of the few things in my life that is truly my own, especially these days. But you know, I think for me, religion serves as a great reminder of what's important, a great reminder of core values. It helps me connect with my children. It helps us connect as a family, and really create a framework for how we want to live our lives.
I see that you post pictures on social media of your family cooking, recently in the Navy Museum with your children. So cute. What are your children, do they understand, do they grasp that their grandfather is the President of the United States? Do they understand that? And what is it like from a working mom's perspective?
They do understand that in a limited capacity. They call Air Force One the candy plane because there's lots of M&Ms and trays of candy. So they always exit the plane a lot more hyper and on a sugar high than when they enter. So
good for you.
There's almost no controlling it, but you know, it's a surreal and remarkable experience, and I really hope that they'll be able to look back and reflect even on these very early years with such gratitude for having been able to be part of this unique experience.
Call it Air Force Fun if it's the candy plane.
How cute is that story? The candy plane.
But you know what? I think those kids, I think the one fear among a lot of wealthy people is their kids aren't going to grow up as hungry as them. Those kids are going to grow up so patriotic. They're going to be around red, white, and blue 24 hours a day. That's one thing they probably wouldn't have gotten in New York City.
Yeah, she talked, we'll show you more of it tomorrow, but she did talk about cooking together as a family and how that's one of their favorite pastimes, and who does the cooking and who does the cleaning. She's trying to keep it very normal. And she said it is a privilege to bring the kids to the White House. They know that this is a privilege and an honor to come here to see their grandfather.
But for the normal Americans, we order out. Most America, they say single people in America 5 times a week are ordering out.
Really?
So they're almost too normal.
Are you single?
They're like, no, but I'm saying, no, I mean, actually, we got this, I can't say what, but we got these people that we order this thing where we cook ourselves.
We call that going to the kitchen?
No, like not Blue Apron, but something like Blue Apron.
You have food
They bring
delivered
food, they
in a
bring
box?
It saves money and it gets everyone doing it. It's fantastic, right? But I mean, like that's almost atypical now to cook as a family.
It is, but you should sit around with your family a few times a week and then have a great family discussion and talk about your kids' day.
Right.
Big proponent of that.
There you go. All right.
Good luck with that.
No, right?
Good interview with Ivar.
Yeah, great.
Thank you.
All right. Meanwhile, straight ahead, Democrats have a new theory for Obamacare's collapse. Insurers are dropping like flies because they don't like President Trump. Kellyanne Conway is here. She's joining us from the North Lawn of the White House next.
And who knew this comment could be a problem? Lisa Durden just got fired for saying this.
You white people are angry because you couldn't use your white privilege card to get invited
Lisa.
to the Black Lives Matters All Black Memorial Day celebration.
I've never. Wow, it's your shot of the morning. Forget a baseball glove. This Cardinals fan uses her purse to catch a foul ball in St. Louis. I believe this was an ESPN game last night.
That's awesome. It has so much force, it knocks the woman backwards off her feet, but her husband's right behind her, and he breaks her fall.
Right.
Put me in, coach. I've got my handbag.
We forgot to tape the game. We just taped the audience. Sorry.
The crowd at Busch Stadium gave her a standing ovation and even some high fives. Congratulations to her. Kellyanne Conway is going to be with us in just a moment, but right now we've got some headlines with Jillian.
Hey, it's all right. Good morning to you guys.
Insisted on going first.
I insisted. I said I must read these stories first. Good Monday morning to you at home. The air is out of the bag. Japanese airbag maker Takata filing for bankruptcy. The company overwhelmed by recall costs and lawsuits from the largest vehicle-related recall in history. Their airbags are linked to the deaths of at least 16 people. And Pharma bro Martin Shkreli ignores his legal team and speaks out ahead of his fraud trial. Shkreli telling the AP that he's excited to go to court today. He sparked nationwide outrage after increasing the price of an HIV drug by nearly 5,000%. And a lawyer wanted for fraud commits fraud to flee the country. Eric Kahn from Kentucky tells the Lexington Herald leader he used a fake passport to go to a country that doesn't have an extradition agreement with the U.S. In March, Kahn pleaded guilty to bribing a judge and stealing nearly $600 million from the federal government. Yeah, I heard a whistle back there.
I think that was John.
Was that John? Hey.
How you doing, John?
I'm just used to you guys reacting as I'm reading.
Right. Well, no one holds John back.
Go ahead, come on.
We want to be in your living room.
Let's go down to the North Lawn of the White House, and the counselor to President Donald J. Trump, Kellyanne Conway, joins us live. Hey, Kellyanne, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hi.
Hey, I got a question for you. You know, the scuttlebutt is there's a possibility that Justice Anthony Kennedy may announce he is retiring today. What's the very latest on that?
Well, we cannot speculate on that. That is totally Justice Kennedy's decision, and he has served for 30 years, almost 30 years, with distinction and care on the court, and that is entirely his decision. I do know that the president, when he appointed Neil Gorsuch, made very clear that at any time when he gets to a federal appointment, whether it's at the Supreme Court level or the district courts, the circuit courts, that he will appoint people, nominate people who have fidelity to the Constitution, don't just legislate from the bench, make it up as they go along. And as with Justice Gorsuch, men and women of great judicial temperament and credentials, and people who should be able to attract more than a handful of Democratic votes, frankly, in the Senate. But that decision is entirely up to Justice Kennedy. It's not for us to speculate.
Our question, though, would then be, if there is an opening on the Supreme Court, would the president's nominee be one of the names on the list that he had come up with the help of some of those groups before the election?
He has said that he will look at the list again and again. That ended up being 20 or 21 men and women, all fine judicial scholars and practitioners. And we saw the process, really, with Justice Gorsuch. But again, I don't want this tied to Justice Kennedy or any other one member, because these are lifetime appointments. But I think it's just, the whole process with Justice Gorsuch was very telling, because it happened so early in this administration. Steve,